Hey, I'm Landon, and welcome to Modern Entrepreneur. Today, I have the great Andrew Warner. He's a founder, he's a long-distance runner, and a scotch drinker, bourbon drinker. He's known for creating Mixergy, an education site for startups featuring content from the founders of Y Combinator, Airbnb, and Pixar, among many others. His latest launch is Bot Academy, which helps companies set up chatbots on Facebook. If you see him, ask him to join you for a run or a scotch.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Is it weird that I'm drinking, by the way, a whiskey before noon here?
No, you're not supposed to tell people it's before noon. They wouldn't have known.
I'm gonna tell them, I just came off stage. It's like so much pressure. I want to do a good job for you. I followed Ontraport for years. You guys invited me to speak here.
Yeah.
So once the pressure was done, I usually wouldn't drink until way later. I said, you know what? I need a little something. And yeah, it felt great. It felt great to talk to the audience. It felt great.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
And you talked to them about Facebook chatbots.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with it right now.
Yeah. So you want to tell us about that real quick?
Yeah, what I'm noticing is that when I talk to my wife, I use email to communicate with her, but I also send her iMessages. When I talk to someone on my team, I use Slack in addition to email. When I talk to others outside of my team, I'll use Facebook Messenger in addition to email. So I thought, why am I only using email to communicate with the people who I want to sell to, with my customers? Mm-hmm. Why shouldn't I also try chat apps? And so the idea of chatbots is that they enable businesses to reach people using messenger apps, just like they would via email. And so that's the future. That's what I'm so gung-ho about, that I came here to speak and created a whole new business around it.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's like everybody's talking about it all of a sudden. It's just
I know.
Like the last 6 months, it's just like...
A year and a half ago, I was talking about it. People said, bot what? And they weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Suddenly now everyone wants a chatbot.
And it's interesting, like I just think, like in the last couple of weeks, I had it happen to me the first time. So it's coming, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But before we get into that, let's just take it back a second. You're the founder of Mixergy, a very well-known, very successful startup in the Valley there, right?
Yeah, we're in heart of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. How long ago did you start that?
08.
08.
Yeah, I thought I was going to start it and run it for the rest of my life, and I will.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, good. If you could go back to like 07 and give yourself a tip based on what you've learned since, what would it be?
You know what, it's painful for me to even think about it and talk about it, but here's the thing. Before that, I had an online greeting card company. We did about 35 million in sales.
Ooh.
All I cared about was numbers.
Yeah.
I would walk in every day and I could see to the minute how much money we made.
Wow.
I was that obsessed with it, right?
Yeah.
Like how many dollars per minute.
Yeah. Whoa.
And after we sold that company, I said, you know, I cared too much about numbers. I should care just about heart. I shouldn't care about numbers at all. Mm-hmm. If anyone told me I should care about the number of subscribers to my podcast, I go, no, I don't even know the number. How many people on your mailing list? I didn't know the number. I didn't care about it.
Yeah.
Big mistake. I somehow got it into my head that you're either a mercenary who cares about nothing but numbers, and you walk into the office and you see your number every day, and that's your value as a human being, as a man. That's true. That's the way it was for me. Or you don't care about it at all and you just care about people. Mm-hmm. And so all I cared about for a long time was just like, how good a job am I doing with my conversations and my podcast, the quality of the courses that we were doing on Mixergy, the quality of the guests. And I'm very proud of the people we had and still do, to teach on Mixergy. I should have cared about numbers. I think it's important to have a couple of metrics that you care about and to maybe not obsess about them to the point where that's your sense of self-worth, but closer to that than I was in the beginning. So if I could go back to when I started, that's what I would do. So
we have a bunch of numbers, as you can imagine. My concern would be if we focused on one number, that it would be hard for every team member to be able to see how to translate a problem there into an action that they can take. How would you?
So what do you do then? You give everyone all the numbers?
So every day we have this thing called Daily Stats that comes out, and it's actually a chart of, I think is it 9 metrics or 12? And it's basically, the way it's organized, it's actually well organized. So we have 3 key focuses in our business, and there's 3 stats, I think, for each focus, and then each team is kind of responsible for a particular stat.
And then everybody in the team knows, everyone in the company knows how well they're doing.
Yeah.
I see. You know what? I think maybe, I think that makes sense, but I find that having one number that the whole team rallies around is really helpful. So we're all working to get towards something. You guys don't do that? You don't say number of new subscribers, new customers, number of email subscribers. Is there one that you guys are using as a rallying point?
I mean, I think that probably the bottom line that everybody knows is that MRR is the bottom line.
Because MRR then is reflective of how well you're doing with your customers,
new customers,
right? Are they
it's
sticking
retention,
around? Yeah.
It's expansion, it's kind of like the whole ball of wax.
Yeah. All right, so you know what? Do you identify with that number? Does that feel like if you're having a bad MRR, like graph, that you're not a good person? or that you're not being as good a person as you could be? Do you internalize it the way that I did?
I don't think I do, but I've been at this for a couple of minutes now. I've seen fire and I've seen rain.
I see.
And so I've kind of been through, bad months and good months, and I also have a bunch of employees. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into making that number work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It sounds like you're much better adjusted than I was.
Well, I think that happens over time, right?
Yeah.
I think that I definitely was probably more concerned 10 years ago.
Okay. And what happened that turned you around?
Just getting beat up a bunch of times.
What's the big? It sounds like there was a big
Look at
fire.
this.
What was the
This
big?
guy's
I'm turning
turning
it
this
around. Of course. What was it?
You can't interview an interviewer. What was the thing?
Yeah.
What
was
what?
your big fire? The one that actually made you just like become who you are. That made you realize, you know what, my number isn't who I am, and I'm stronger than the number. And also, when the number is great, I'm not infallible.
In the early part of the decade, 2010, we got a bunch of traction. 2009, business took off. We realized the business wasn't the software wasn't scalable. We had to rebuild it from scratch, basically. And it took us a long time because it was a nights and weekends project. We put everything we had into it. We launched it in early 2014 to forever. And it looked good for a couple of months. Sales tripled when we launched this thing. We hired 25 people in one day, and then the wheels came off. The whole thing started smoking, and
Because the software wasn't working.
yeah, it was.
Wow.
We had some initial troubles that lasted about 4 months, 4 or 5 months. We call it the shitstorm. Was that period of late 2014, and a bunch of stuff went wrong all at once. We had gotten ourselves overextended. We're a bootstrap business, so we don't have like money to burn. And we took a gamble hiring 25 people, and like immediately it blew up in our faces. We had basically a year of almost very low growth, which we've been a super high growth company. And so 2015. We kind of hurt our reputation. It took us a minute to fix the software, then it took us a longer minute to rebuild our reputation.
You know what? I remember that. I remember the Facebook comments about it. Right. This was pretty public.
Oh yeah, it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, right. And you jumped in there, and I remember you responding, and wow.
No, it was a disaster zone. And in 2015, then that turned into financial problems and this close to a round of layoffs. And I aged 10 years.
And so what'd you do to get over it? Therapy? It's not whiskey. You're not a drinker.
No, it is whiskey.
It's 11 in the morning. What are we doing? Yes.
Well, what I did is we buckled down and we got through it, and so we survived is what we did, and then we ended up thriving again, and I think what it taught me was that to be more fucking careful, but also that you will live another day. You know what I mean? And a bad month doesn't mean the end of your life. And that was a tough year. 2015
That's a
was
hard
tough
thing
year.
for me. A bad month doesn't. I thought if I even do poorly on stage here today, that could be the end of my life. There's a very if you screw up, something bad could happen type of thing in my build. I don't know what it is.
Ambition is funny that way.
Yeah, it is, right? I've learned to deal with it and to just soften the blow, but there's definitely you've got to do well in this interview. You've got to do well on stage.
Yeah.
There isn't some bad thing that's going to happen, but in my head, there's an overall badness that will happen if you don't do well.
Do you think that living in the heart of it all, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, contributes to that?
No, I think it's growing up in New York.
Oh.
Seriously, I grew up in New York with these massively successful people all around me. My friends, some of them, their parents were these guys that you read about, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about multimillionaires at a time where I was thinking $20 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you either think none of that matters, or you do what I did, which is to think, how do I get to that level? And to get to that level, especially New York style, you have to obsess, right? So I was a 21-year-old guy wearing a black suit with a black tie, because you have to obsess. You can't let yourself be unbuttoned like this. That's the makeup that I come from.
Yeah, interesting. So how did that turn into first of all, what is your unique skill set, and how do you think that upbringing contributed to it?
I guess it's a handful of things. One, this just genuine curiosity that I developed over the years for other people is really helpful. It helps me with the people that I work with to understand where they're going. It helps me also understand my audience, my customers, what they're looking for. Right? I do a podcast, tons of people doing interviews. You're doing an interview right now, right? It's really hard to compete in that space, and my podcast still competes in it largely because I have this genuine curiosity. Like you're interviewing me, I can't help but turn around. So that's a big one. And I find that when I take interest in people, that it creates a connection, a bond, and a relationship.
Being interested.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was really uninterested in other people. I cared only about money. And then I heard about Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I read the book. How to Win Friends and Influence People is kind of a dorky title, so I didn't tell anyone. But I read it. And one of his big things is be interested in other people, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be interesting, be interested. I learned it. I got interested in other people. I cared about them. I genuinely started to find myself caring about other people. And I loved it so much that I went, since I was in New York, I knocked on the door of Dale Carnegie and Associates, right in the heart of the city.
No way.
And I was a college student. I said, I'll do anything for free. I just want to be around the people who are living this book so that I can live it more. And they said, we've got the right person for you to work for. There was this guy there, Robert Reese, I'll never forget his name, and he was an experimenter. He loved that I was willing to knock on the door. He wanted to experiment with ways of bringing Dale Carnegie's ideas to other people. And by reading the book, by going through their class, because they gave it to me for free, because I was working for them for free, and by experiencing it through the way they did it, I learned empathy, I learned to understand how to talk to people, and it just changed me completely.
So you rolled that into this interview series, Mixergy,
Yep.
which just blew up.
Yep.
And you're still working on that?
Still doing
You were
Mixergy.
just mentioning that you're going to do that for the rest of your
For the
life.
rest of my life. You're going to see like a 99-year-old guy doing an interview with someone, yeah.
Yeah. Why?
I'm so genuinely curious, and I can't sit down with someone at dinner and say, tell me about the time you were depressed. Tell me about the time the wheels fell off, right?
Yeah.
All the curiosity that I have to find a way to make it socially acceptable and bring it up at the right spots in conversation. But in an interview, no, I don't, right?
Yeah.
I get to jump in and say, hey, you know what? I was depressed once. I did this with a guy just the other day. I was
Yeah.
depressed once. Here's what happened for me. How did you deal with it? And suddenly I'm getting to talk to the best of the best people about their most challenging times. It's insanely fortunate.
Yeah. And what's working for you right now in terms of growing that business?
The biggest thing for that is, to be honest, because we've done this for so long as a team, the reputation is tremendously helpful. We
Yeah.
now get guests who we couldn't reach otherwise. People who
Yeah.
started, I had Justin Kahn come on, not just to do an interview, though he did it, he also came on to teach a class on Mixergy about entrepreneurship. He's
Yeah.
the guy who founded Twitch TV, where you can go and watch people play live video games.
Yeah.
Seems silly, sold it for about $1 billion to Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? I asked him, why are you doing this? Why are you teaching on my platform? And he said, I'm teaching on Mixergy because I used to listen to it when I was building my company. So a lot of people grew up listening to Mixergy, started their businesses listening to Mixergy, built it with what they learned from other entrepreneurs, and now they're coming back. And
Yeah. Longevity.
That's helping tremendously.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a tip that can translate to people who are watching us,
Sure.
the number one thing I have to say about interviews is interview people who have big, passionate followings.
Yeah.
Their fans will find you. Their fans are going to discover you, and then they're going to stick around for other stuff.
And then in the rest, you got your fingers in a lot of pots. Is Facebook chatbot the thing right now that's like turning up the volume across the board, or what's the
You know what? A few years ago, I got an email from a fan of mine, Wade. He said, Andrew, I'm a fan of yours. I know that you're struggling to find people who are filling out your form to also get them to subscribe to an email list that you have. I'm creating a tool that will help you do that. Do you want to talk about it? I said, yes. He showed me the tool that later became Zapier. And I said, I want it. And he didn't have an account. He didn't want to charge me. I said, I'm going to pay you because I want you to build it. I PayPal'd him $100, and I became the first Zapier customer. And they built this tool up that connects anything. Ontraport can connect to now ManyChat, the chatbot program that we use, and so on. And what I realized was that I have a really good fan base of people who are hard charging creative entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Couple that with me being so interested in new technology that's actually useful and actually will generate revenue, a real return on investment. That's told me that if someone in my audience creates something that I have to use so badly that I'm willing to pay for it, from now on I'm going to put some money into the company and I'm going to invest. And so I made some angel investments based on that. The latest one is not the latest, one of them is a company called ManyChat, which I needed some way to communicate with people via chat. I tested and tried all the platforms that were out there. This is the one I liked. I got to know the founder, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to invest. I'm not just going to be your first customer, which I was. I'm also going to invest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so what are you learning about right now? What's kind of like your personal cutting edge?
I think that there's a land grab now for subscribers of chat, and I'm trying to figure out how do you do it? How do you get more subscribers of a chat bot? How do you get those subscribers to also subscribe to email, right?
Yeah.
How do you get your email people to understand, right? That whole way of things working is something I'm insanely fascinated with.
It's so new. A lot of experimentation happening right now.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking earlier about how someone who heard me talk about chatbots created a post on Facebook. Anyone who comments on it got a guide from him via Facebook Messenger,
Yeah.
and immediately Facebook Messenger said, can I also send it to you via email? If you said yes, you typed in your email address, and now you're on his email list and on his chat list. He can communicate with you in both ways, right?
Yeah.
Longer form messages that aren't time sensitive, he sends via email. Short form messages that need action right now, he sends via Facebook message, right? So the way that these two worlds combine is really interesting. And that's the thing. So we are marketers who are innovating and opening up businesses to chat. I invested in another company called Assist. They create these beautiful chat experiences. You can go in and buy flowers on Facebook Messenger. First, I can say via Facebook Messenger, my wife's having a birthday. They say, okay, tell me about your wife. I tell them about my wife. They say, here's some flowers we think your wife's gonna like. I pick the one I like, I pay for it via Facebook Messenger. They built this, Assisted, the company I invested in, for 1-800-Flowers, their client that's using their software. Mark Zuckerberg on stage announced this whole chat platform. He shows this. He says, I love this. Who goes to buy flowers on Facebook Messenger? No one. This technology will die unless a marketer like you and me and the people who are listening to you are coming to this conference, Ontrapalooza, unless we say we have to put some marketing behind it. And if we put marketing behind it, we are going to pioneer it. Then it's going to become this thing that people really think about when it's time for them to buy flowers. So marketers pioneer.
They do.
But I get your challenge and bring it up because I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah, the thing is that I have yet to get spammed via Facebook Messenger. But you know, if marketers have their way,
it's impossible. It's actually impossible to spam. I cannot. You and I are friends. My business cannot send you a Facebook message. You can come to my house. The next day, you're interested in my business while we're having scotch at my house. The next day, I want to follow up with you. My business cannot send you a Facebook message. You have to actively initiate it. It's impossible otherwise. So you have to actively initiate it, and you can cancel at any time. Not by telling Andrew, I want to stop. Not by telling Andrew's bot, I want to stop. But by just swiping up and saying delete. You could also swipe up and report. Now, you report someone to Facebook a few times, they're done. This is an environment where you have to be a good actor or else you're booted.
So you think they've set it up well and there's not going to be additional regulations down the road?
I don't think they're going to be regulations because they're setting it up just like you said. They're setting it up really well. Now, if you're not interesting, today people will still read your stuff because it's novel, right? Like the first TV shows, I watch them to this day, I think, who watched this thing? It was novel to see some pixels on a screen that would actually, wasn't even pixels, right? To see some lights on a screen that were funny or entertaining, so people watch that stuff. Today it's not because, you know, stuff has gotten more sophisticated and it's more targeted towards everyone. So same thing is true with chat. Today I could send something that's not really that interesting. I could send a photo of the two of us just kind of hanging out over here. People would say, interesting that a bot can actually send this to me. 2 months from now, it's going to be harder. 2 years from now, it's going to be impossible. So we have to keep finding ways to be interesting, to engage people, to do more than just send them promotional material. And if we do that, they're going to want to keep staying subscribed. If we don't, we're out.
Interesting that you positioned yourself to be in the center of technology in the way you have. Did you anticipate that when you started doing interviews that you'd end up like having the opportunity to angel invest in Zapier and ManyChat?
What my dream was, and you can go back to listen to the early interviews, I said, look, I'm going to work like mad to do these interviews right, with the idea that you will be listening to these interviews and build businesses based on what I do, what I say, what you hear these guests do, and then you'll come back and do an interview. So I didn't so much want to be an angel investor. I didn't want to do anything else. My vision was to do what Dale Carnegie did for me. Dale Carnegie wrote a book that influenced my life, influenced my business. I want to create an interview series that has that kind of impact on people. When you create a business based on some ideas that you heard, it changes your life and then it impacts your customers, your employees. Think about all the people that you're touching. Think about that, right? How many people work at Ontraport?
110 or 20.
Right? How many businesses are built on Ontraport, right? We can hardly count them, right? This is an insane amount of power that you have. The ability for me in my interviews to contribute, to allow someone else to see that this is possible, to build a business, that is the dream. And podcasts are going to outlive us. What you and I are talking about right now is going to outlive us. I used to go back and read stories of Andrew Carnegie, right? The guy, the steel tycoon. And he shaped my life too. People are gonna watch this stuff when we're dead. Even though the technologies we're talking about are out of date, they will still see, how did you think through your turmoil? How did I think through my numbers? Why did I adjust it? And if we're relatable and if we're real, then they're gonna be influenced by it long after we're dead. And to me, that's the dream.
Yeah. That's exciting.
It is exciting.
A worthwhile way to spend your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we live in this pretty unique moment in terms of entrepreneurship. We've named this thing Modern Entrepreneur. What do you feel like the sort of unique opportunities and responsibilities are of being a entrepreneur today?
To not play house. Do you have kids?
I do.
Right? Do you remember like how much that changes things? Right? Suddenly you're not playing house. You're really like, you can't just go out when you, right? It's so easy as an entrepreneur to play house. And we're not doing it in the old way that people used to do by buying business cards as soon as we start our company, but we are doing it in the sense of, I'm starting a company, I'm an entrepreneur, and the idea that I'm an entrepreneur is bigger than the work that you have to do to be an entrepreneur. And I think too many people are playing house. The work is a lot harder. The work of talking to your customers, you do it, right? You're talking to people here. I do it with my audience. What are they interested in on Mixergy? What are their problems so we can bring in course leaders to help them with it? I see the founder of ManyChat, who we both met, Mikhail Yang. Mikhail Yang is in Russia working with his developers at 1 in the morning, no joke. He'll talk to me, and then he'll talk to people who are part of Bot Academy, where we train people to create chatbots, about our challenges with chatbots, about where we see this going. That is not playing house as an entrepreneur. That is the insane, never-ending work, hours that most people don't know exist. They sleep through them. He is up working. You are working. This is the idea. And you know what? To find purity in that, to find joy in that, that is what it is to be an entrepreneur. So anyone can go out and buy sneakers, but not everyone can hit that 4-mile mark. And every January, we're going to see this in January, the roads are going to be, especially here in Santa Barbara, filled with people, brand new sneakers, brand new running clothes. This is the year, right? Playing house by buying that is really easy. Going through mile 4 is hard. Suffering through mile 4 and then saying, this is the pain, this is the work, that is a challenge. And so that's the big thing that I'd say a modern entrepreneur needs to understand, because we're full of these fakos out there, the people who are pretending, right? If I was a pretend rapper, you'd understand that I was a pretend rapper in a second. You'd hear me rap, you'd see me with my weirdo backwards hat, right? It's a little harder to spot the fake entrepreneurs, but they exist, and there are a lot of them, and we need to stay as modern entrepreneurs focused on the business, on the work, on the clients, on the stuff that nobody's gonna praise, on that being up at 1 o'clock talking to a customer, on that sweating it, the equivalent of the 4-mile or 8-mile, and still saying, I love this and I'm gonna do this. This is the pain that I signed up for.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Andrew, thank you so much for being here. This is great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Sign our wall?
Yes.
Appreciate it.